Okay, let's record this building of a Plinky. Hello, sorry if the audio is a bit rubbish, I'm just recording with my iPhone, but it should be good enough to show you how to build a Plinky. I've got all the bits for the kit in front of me. You've got the back panel, you've got the main board, you've got the front panel, which is also a circuit board, you've got the screen with its little connector, and you've got a bag full of bits. Okay, let's push the bits out the way. There's there for now. And we don't need the back panel for now, so we'll put that out the way as well. Let's start with the main board. And its little anti-static bag. Now I've already flashed and tested this board off camera, so hopefully this will be how you get it. Okay, let's just do it. First thing to do is to find the switch on your soldering iron, which I shall do in the background. Okay, so first thing to do is to find these little, where's the camera? Can I focus on that? So like a little stereo jack plug. There should be 4 of them, and they go either side of the USB ports. So 1, 2, probably 2 at a time. Let's turn it over. Hold it on with my fingers, flip it over and take a soldering iron and a bit of solder. I'm not going to teach you to solder on this stream, but we will just clean the soldering iron, put the solder on. Now you want to make sure that the jack is nice and flush to the board, especially if you bought the aluminium case. Okay, let's check the first one. First one looks good, nice and flush. Second one's fallen out, of course, so we'll put it back in. We'll get into the flow of this in a minute. So second one, again making sure it's flush on the first pin. Nice solder joint. Second pin, third pin. Easy peasy. There you can see those 3 joints. Now in between them is the USB port, which is already soldered on. However, there are 4 little holes which are for physically attaching it, making it stronger so it doesn't break off when you plug the USB cable in. They aren't soldered, so all you need to do is dab a little bit of solder flow through those holes. So that just physically secures the USB ports. So it's electrically soldered already on the top side, but it's not been physically secured. Alright, that's the first 2. Let's do the ones on the other side. I'll do the USB port while I'm at it. 1, 2. It's a little kind of hillock of solder on there. And you want to, let's put the other 2 stereo jacks in. One goes in here. Be careful for shorts and all the usual things. The top tip for soldering is you want to get both metal surfaces. This is a bit tricky this side because of the capacitors. You want to get both metal surfaces hot because the solder will only join 2 hot things. So you basically heat up the leg of the part you're putting in and the making sure that I've got it flush, doing it a bit slower on this one because it's a bit less stable, touching up the joint a bit. There we go. Yeah, so you have to heat both the leg and the pad before applying solder, and that way it will flow nicely. You don't have to burn it or anything. Alright, that's 3 out of 4 on. Let's do the 4 out of 4. There's a car alarm going off in the background, which is the perils of being in central London and using an ambient mic for doing audio. C'est la vie. And 1 more pin and another pin. Right, that was easy. Double check my joints, double check it's flat. So you've got 2 connectors on that side and 2 connectors on that side. Easy peasy. Alright, let's do the pin headers. So basically at the top of the board, which is currently upside down, so the bottom of the board, there are these, you want these female 2x8, come on focus camera, you can do it. Little 2x8, it's not going to focus, so I'm not going to do this again. But yeah, little 2x8 female receptacle socket, I should say. Old fashioned way of saying it's female, but I think socket is just a better term. Right, turn it upside down. Let's put the there's a wave of renaming going on in electronics, which I think is a good thing. I actually on the expansion header here, I actually have adopted the new terms for the SPI bus, which is peripheral and I can't remember what the other one is. I'm only doing 2 pins, the diagonal corners, and then I just take it out and make sure that it's nice and as flush as possible to the board. It sits up a tiny bit from the board, but not a great deal. You can always press down with your finger and heat up the joint to make sure that it's nice and flat. Oh yes, one thing I'm not used to is that these boards will come with rails. These side, you may notice it's got these extra side green bits. These are actually pre-scored, so they just snap off with your fingers. In theory. Come on. That one doesn't want to. Let's persuade it with some persuasion, just gently. There we go. Otherwise it'll be wider than the case, which is no good. Anyway, so that one's done, at least the corners of it are. Let's do the other one. Car alarm stopped for us, which is very kind. Da-da-da. 1 and 2. Alright, let's double check that that's flush, which it is. Now I can quickly go down the plier that way. I can just quickly go down and do those 16 pins, 8 on each side. On each connector, so 32 in total. 1, 2, 3. A nice conical joint. Heat up each pin. Careful for shorts. So these are the touch controller on one side, which is the one I'm doing now, and the LED pins that drive all the little blinking lights on the front. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. I'm using an Ursa Nano soldering iron. It is possible to solder with like a $2 soldering iron. It's actually harder to solder with a $2 soldering iron because it's not temperature regulated, and having it at a nice even temperature really helps to make you feel like you're good at soldering even if you're not. So don't feel bad if you're using a cheapy soldering iron and it's a little tricky. I'm not very good at soldering myself, but I have a nice soldering iron, so I'm cheating a little bit. It's not like a hacker, it's not like the really posh ones. It's kind of in the middle, European version. Alright, I think I've done. Police are coming. Inspect my bad soldering. Alright, I've done the headers. That was pretty easy. We're motoring basically. If you're comfortable so far, then you're basically comfortable with the whole kit. Let's do. What should we do? Let's prepare some pins. So basically, there are these male pin headers, which are going to mount onto the front panel on the back of here. They have a little straightener which you can just take off and throw away. It's like a little pin protector. So for these, they are a little bit too long. So the pins are just a tiny bit too long, and you basically want to chop 1 millimeter off them. Now I really strongly recommend you wear some glasses or some eye protection, because when you trim the little millimeter off, it tends to ping off, and you really don't want that going in your eye or your pet's eyes or your children's eyes. So clear the area and wear some eye protection, please. So I found that 3 layers of PCB board or Reverb board, but you don't have to use this if you don't have it lying around, but that's 1.6 millimeters times 3, which gives you the perfect amount, and then there's a little tiny bit sticking out. So I take my edge cutters, I have my eye protection on, and let's do this on camera, but you basically snip a little millimetre or so off each leg. Now if you don't do this, it's not the end of the world, especially if you're using a Euro rack case. It basically doesn't matter, it just means that the front and back of your Plinky will be at a very slight angle, which you won't be able to tell when it's in the case. For the aluminium case, it matters more because the ports on the front will line up better if you do this. I haven't actually tried it without doing this, but I would recommend doing this basically, especially if you have the aluminium case. Well, it's fiddly when you're doing this on camera. 2 more, I think. Doesn't have to be perfect. If you're doing it without the guide, just lop off a millimetre. So yeah, so that's sort of like pretty much flush now. Looks the same, just a wee bit shorter. Let's compare the one that I've done and the one that I haven't done. There's the one that I haven't done. Piece coming again. I didn't wear my eye protection, yes I did. So the one that I have done is just like a millimetre shorter. Right, we'll do the other one. This is the most fiddly step actually, it's annoying. I wish I could find, you know, slightly shorter ones, but I haven't been able to find them, so. Chopping it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I can't count, lots. My cats will not appreciate these little bits of metal. Sorry cats. I've done. Brushed that one a bit, but it's fine. Okay. So good. I've got that in. You can just plop them upside down into the headers that you just soldered. Solder headers? Headers that you just soldered. So plop one in, plop the other one in, we can forget about it after that, we won't lose it. Come on. It's a little bit stiff. Lovely. What should we do next? I find the pots probably the trickiest thing to plop into place, so let's try that. So this is a pot, there's 2 of them, there's an encoder and a pot. Actually the encoder is a bit easier. The encoder is the one that goes click, 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 and there's a button. That one actually tends to plop into place pretty easily. Be careful of the little pins, they're quite delicate, so you just want to, should go in without force. You might need to sort of poke at the pins to make them be sort of lined up. Yeah, look, this one's a little bit bent. Just try to very gently just put it into place. There we go, that one's in. And it's just sitting in by friction, it's not going to, it'll fall out if I wave it around too much. These ones are a bit fiddlier just because, again, the 3 pins, be gentle with them, and the support pins on either side, they're not electrical, they're just physical. They tend to be a bit too wide, so you have to bend them in very slightly. They go in here, and they require a bit more force for those side pins. I'll be up. Ah, no, see, look, I made a mistake. I bent one of my 3 pins. I wasn't suitably delicate with it, and I've now bent one of my pins. Good disaster stream. They will break, so maybe I'll straighten it with a pair of pliers. So be gentle and don't do what I just did. Let's try that again. Paying a bit more attention to my little 3 pins. Go away, you little bastard. There we go. That one's in. Good cautionary tale, that one. Right, let's do the other one. Goes right next to it. Squidge in the physical pins. Plop in the delicate ones first, maybe. If anyone's got any top tips for plonking potentiometers, let me know. Come on, you little bugger. The delicate pins are in, but the side pins don't want to go in at the moment. Push it in a bit. One, I can feel it going. Yeah, there we go. Check I haven't bent anything. Right, so we've got our pots in, and we're not going to solder them. We're just going to leave them like that. Now we're going to take our 3 green thonk jacks, which are these ones, and there are 3 positions marked green, green and green. So they go into the places marked green. 1, and they should be held in by friction as well, pretty well. 2, I managed to bend this one, so let's bend it straight again. There we go. Oh, that's all wonky. It's been sitting in my drawer for a while. Just make sure the pins are, all 3 are going in. Ah! That one jumped out. There we go. Green ones. Now we do the black ones. All around. 13 of them. Once we've done these, we've done most of it, to be honest. Well, most of the easy bit. Most of the meaty bit. Most of the soldering-y bit. I'm going mad. I'm in the house on my own, the kids are at school. So my lady is working, so I'm having a pre-work breakfast build session, as you do. While they're still light in these winter months, right? Lovely. 1 and 2. I'm actually in my pyjamas, which I think is the officially correct building attire. The first ever Plinky demo on my YouTube channel. I'm in these same pyjamas. The pyjamas have survived. Oh my god. Go in. I'm being careful to not push too hard, and it's more about lining up. It's a bit like Lego. No point pushing hard, you've got to line it up. Tell my kids that and they still just try and brute force it. Come on, little. It's very hard not to swear. Right. Nearly done, 3 more. What we're going to do is we're going to plop the come on. Some of them are a bit tighter than others. Strange. I feel like Big Clive. If you haven't watched Big Clive's YouTube channel, it's very good. Oh, that one went in just easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Right, here is my front board, and I shall place it over the various bits and bobs that I've just put in. And that is the way that they are all forced to line up beautifully. So I wiggle them a little bit. There we go, click. And if you want to, you can screw on like 2 of the little hex nuts that come with the kit, just to kind of hold the thing in place. Now be careful, because remember we haven't soldered anything, so this is just kind of all resting in place, and we're going to solder it in a moment. Oh, one-handed hex nut screwing is not my forte. There we go. Doesn't have to be tight, it's just to hold it in a sandwich. Now if you've got the trimming right of those pins, they won't be holding the board apart. It should look like it's kind of nicely sandwiched all the way along. If you didn't trim those pins, then this part of the board will be a bit too fat. It isn't the end of the world, but it's better if they are. And if you've trimmed too much, don't worry about too much. It's not at the end of the world, but the pins won't be flat on the front panel, kind of like a trade-off. But you can pull them out just to be flush. Right. Anyway, so we've got a nice little sandwich. I'm going to rest it on a spare. Some people use a block of wood. Going to use a thing here just to hold that in place, and basically we just solder all of the wires, you know. So we've got 16 thump jacks, 3 48 little pins to do. 1, 2. I tend to do 1 each, just so that they're sort of held in place. Putting gentle pressure with the heel of my hand so that I know that the sandwich is nice and tight, although the nuts that we screwed on help. Right, so that's 7 and 8 of one side, of one pin of one side, turn it around. I'm a lefty, so I like to have stuff to my accessible from the left. Let's do one, la la la. I should get a fume extractor, shouldn't I? The smell of RS solder reminds me of school electronics lab. My secondary school had a lab, but no electronics teacher, but they had a very lovely biology teacher called Mr. Phillips, who let me run riot, and he was officially in charge of the electronics lab. A very good teacher he was too. Thanks, Mr. Phillips. They only offered GCSE, so wasn't terribly advanced. And back then, in the olden days when it was black and white, can't see what I'm doing in the sunlight actually. You couldn't order boards from China and have magical stuff arrive. But the school had a little one-sided PCB etching kit we could use to make one-sided PCBs if we were very lucky. Alright, I've done 2 out of 3 pins on that side. I don't know why I'm doing it, it's kind of backwards way, but looks better on camera, something. Again, careful for shorts, but you know, it's pretty big. There's no like fine, you know, everything's quite far apart, so it should be alright. Right, all looks flush from the side. We've done, you know, pretty much all the jacks. We've done 1 pin on this side, so let's do the other 2 pins. 1, 2. I actually managed to not put enough solder on these sometimes. How are we doing? 2, 3, 4, 5. Put more on that one. 6. I'm counting up, but it doesn't actually bear any relation to reality, because I've just noticed I've got 3 left. 2 left now. 1, 2. Kind of done. Look at the top of my head. Go on, you little. So inspect those a little bit. It's always worth checking your work. I mean, it's not beautiful, but it's done. Now, next bit, we're doing the pots and stuff. Let's do the pots first. So the 2 that are side by side, which is on this side, because upside down. They have 3 little pins each. They're quite close together in the scheme of things, so 2.5 millimeters apart. So don't short them out, or your knobs won't work. And we can do the big fat support posts as well. There we go. 1. Need to solder that stuff. Right, 1, 2. The other one. That means that if you give the knob a good whack, it won't wiggle out, break the solder joints. Another one. There we go. Remember, heat up the pad and the pin. Turn this around so I can lefty style get at it. See the plug wasn't beautifully soldered. Wow, I was warming up. Right, where was I? Oh, it's upside down. So the encoder is another of those pesky devices which is slightly lower than I'd like it to be. Pins are too long, encoder's too short. It's irritating. So we're not going to solder the encoder yet. You'll notice I haven't done these guys, done all of these guys. Beginning to look like a Plinky really. All that's left to do panel-wise is the screen and the clicky encoder. Should we do that now? Yeah, let's do that now. So I'll just take off those nuts, put them to one side. So, we've done well, but let's do the screen. So the screen, which I've also tested, you will get in a little plastic bag. It's open because I've tested your screen for you on my kitchen table. And we're going to solder this 4 little pins into the screen. So they go in from the back, so the screen looks like that. We can peel it. Well, let's not peel off the covering yet, and the pins go in the back. But they poke through quite far. You can see them poking out there, even though it's not in focus. I don't want them to poke through. So what I tend to do is use the edge of a board or something, being careful not to break the glass of the screen. I use my fingernails to, maybe I can use a pair of thin tweezers to push down on that. Basically, I'm resting the board on the front panel, and then so I don't squish the glass basically, and then I'm pushing that down, pushing the plastic down the pins. So the plastic is much closer to the edge now, but there's a little bit poking out, and when I push that through, I've now got nice and short little pins, or you can't see, but nice and short, and I'm going to solder those from the top side. I have to find something to rest. There's a little widget that's just the right height, so I'm basically resting this. I need the three-handed thing. Let's try and use my little finger. A little bit of solder. I'll put onto one pin, come on. Need another pair of hands. Let's have a look. Do the ground pin, shall we? There we go. Now, it's not very beautiful, but it's held in place. So you can see that it's a nice right angle. Maybe you can't see that, but yeah. Nice right angle and not too much poking through. And again, I'm soldering from the top side here. Poke the pin in from the bottom side. And then I'm going to solder the top side. I've got my hands back because it's held in place by that first joint. Make sure the solder's flowed nice and clean my eye in a bit. Great, I've got a bit of rubbish in there, but yeah. So I've prepared the screen. Peel the protective film off. Be careful not to break glass. You can get these on eBay and Amazon if you do break it for about £2, but you know, don't do that. So yeah, one nice little right angle thingy, and that basically sits in its 4 little holes there, and we can put the lid back on, turn it upside down. Now, the encoder. If you look very carefully from the end, you'll see that the screen is, you know, nicely against the board, and then the encoder is a little bit too far in. Now, it doesn't matter if it's too far in, but I tend to pull it out a little bit. But you've got to be careful you don't squish the screen, so it's just to sort of do it by eye. The machine's finished. So I'm just pulling out the encoder a tiny bit. I think that's fine, just to make it as tall as I can on the, you know, the knob as tall as I can, without actually pulling out of its holes. We'll gently put that down, and let's, oh, you little bastard. I didn't put the nuts back on. I should have put the nuts back on. Noob. Well, let's just carry on without putting the nuts back on because I'm an idiot. Right, let's see how badly this goes. So the encoder's been pulled out very slightly to make sure it's not, you know, crushing the screen, but also all its pins are still reachable. It has 5 little pins, a group of 3 and a group of 2, which I am now in the process of soldering. Remember, heat the pin, heat the pad. I didn't heat the pad then. Such a hypocrisy. And in terms of the support, it's barely going to be going in, so just let the solder flow through the board, make a mechanical connection. And the last one's actually just hanging off the edge because I wanted it right up against the edge. Right. The next thing is just make sure your screen is square as it can be. Maybe if you've got a pair of tweezers, you can just nudge it into kind of squarish place. It looks flush to the panel, you know, not at a wonky angle. Pins should just poke through, and we do those 4 pins. 1. Ground is always you'll notice the ones labelled ground are going to be the ones that need the most heat to actually heat them up, because there's plenty of ground on the board and copper, and it carries the heat away. So if you ever wonder why some pins are easier to solder than others, it's because the ground ones hopefully have big swathes of copper. So we've got everything is in. Do you know what we've forgotten? We've forgotten the Eurorack power header. I completely forgot it. Now, Plinky works both in a Eurorack case and powered by USB. So the beauty of it is that you don't power it off both, please. That's quite tricky to do because you know, balances on my solder reel. Yeah, don't power it off both. It's got its own little 12-volt power supply in it off USB, so it can even run the Eurorack headers nicely. Now make sure that's nice and flush. Mine wasn't, so I just adjusted the pin. So I soldered one corner pin, I checked it was flush, standard business. And then we go down and quickly solder these. Again, make sure for shorts, you really don't want to short this, because if you short this, you're going to blow up your Eurorack case as well as Plinky. Yeah, so no shorts, please. You'll notice that there's another hole that this Eurorack pin header can go into, which is in the middle of the board where that hole is. Don't put anything there. That's for a future MIDI expander, which hopefully can be passive or very nearly passive. Well, it has to have optocouplers on it, but you know, very basic bit of kit. So that'll be like a little 2 HP buddy that goes alongside. Oh, I'm messing this one up. Come on, 2, 3, 4, 5. But yeah, if you don't have a Eurorack case, solder this on anyway, just so that when you do get a Eurorack case, you can be like, yeah, now I've got a Eurorack module. Yeah, I kind of did that in a bit of a rush, but it looks like it's semi-acceptable. Sorry, Euro, let's look at my little pile of bits. Do we have a change of pace? This is the back panel. You can choose if you want a completely blank back panel or one with Plinky on it. I'm going to go with one with Plinky on it. And you should have 8 little screws, and 3 screws that just sit in there, and 4 little spacers, and you just stick a screw in, and I hope these are the, did I get the right size spacers for this video? Oh poo, I didn't. Alright, well you should have 4 spaces that fit as opposed to the 4 spaces that don't fit, but I just, let me see if I've got some over here. Huh. Well, it looks like I didn't bring the right spaces over. That's irritating. Can't see them out of my peripheral vision. Yeah, I got M2.5 spaces for the stream. Is there then 3 spaces that you'll have? Well, anyway, I will tell you that the 4 spaces make nice little pillars if only they fitted, and then you can use that to make a back panel for your Plinky, even if you didn't buy the aluminium case. That's super annoying. Anyway, I've got one spacer here that's too short, but I can show you anyway. So you stick the screw in. My big supply of proper spacers hasn't arrived, so there you go. So you get one of those. You screw them into the 4 corners, and then your freshly built Plinky basically sits in between them, front panel on top, and screw it all together with the 8 screws that you have. But I've managed to not bring the right spaces with me, like an idiot. Never mind, let's ignore that. So, electronics, we're nearly done. We've done the Eurorack, done the headphone jacks, done the USB, done the CV controls, inputs, outputs on the screen, done the... My goodness, there's time to just do the front panel. couple of steps, plonk it on. Now the goal here is to make sure that we're going to solder these pins here and these pins here, and we want them as flush as possible to the board. So just pull them out from the sockets if you need to. Beautiful. It's a thing of beauty. Joy forever. Now, I don't know if you can see this, and push this back as far as I can to try and get the parallax. Okay, you can't quite see it. There are 8 little pins flush against the board, and our goal here, which you won't be able to see, is that you heat up the pin and the pad with your soldering iron, and then touch a bit of solder onto it, and it will flow and solder flush the board. Let's do the first one. There we go. Hold it up to the camera. Tiny bit of solder now holding that pin onto that board, and you basically want to do that for all 8. And remember, no shorts please, otherwise your touch or your LEDs won't work. Let's do the other side quickly, do 1 pin on each side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, once you get a good angle, pretty easy, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so I've actually done the whole set of headers on the other one. I didn't have quite such a good angle for this one, so it's a bit more annoying. 1, 2, 3 I've done now. 4, you can touch this up afterwards in a moment, it's slightly more convenient. The reason we're doing it with it all wedged together is that it just means that it's all aligned. We're using the front panel as a sort of alignment for everything. So yeah, so I've just basically gone and done all 8 of those pins and all 8 of those pins. Delightful. Now your Plinky is now effectively welded together. This is quite tricky, but you just want to prise it apart, alternating sides. It's stiff as all stiffness. It gets looser after you've done it a few times. But gently and gradually pull your front panel off. It's nearly there now. One side's out. Come on, you little thing. It's coming. Bend. There we go. So that's our front panel. We're just going to solder the inside 8 and touch up the 8 that we just did if we need to. So heat up the pad and the pin. Heat up the pad and the pin, and then apply the solder. Pad and pin, apply the solder. Just turn the solder line around. Pad and pin, apply solder. 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 Let's do the last one, shall we? Now, clean my iron. Okay. All done. Let's have a quick look. Let's see. Yeah, that'll do. Yeah, I think that's alright. It's not beautiful, but it'll do. Now, I've already soldered the white LEDs onto this, but I'm going to show you how to solder the blue ones because it's the same. And watching me solder, it takes me about 20-30 minutes to solder all those white LEDs. And I'm going to show you the process now by just showing you the 8 blue LEDs, which are the ones I haven't done yet along the bottom. So, step 1, 3 steps, is to apply a teeny tiny blob of solder to each. Oh, I've done it on this board already. Well, I'll do it again. You apply a tiny blob of solder to, like a pillow, to one pad of each of the 8 pads. So, basically, on one side of each of those, I've added a tiny, tiny blob of solder that you can barely see. Then what we do is we take our strip of LEDs, which there are 64 of the white ones, and there are 8 of the blue ones, and we take our trusty tweezers and we peel off the plastic that's keeping them in their case. These are incredibly light. Now, okay, good. There we go. So peel off the plastic. Don't lose them. One. Just empty them onto my desk. They're about the size of a grain of rice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Good. Now, you take your tweezers. Step 2, and you plonk them onto the board. Now you want them so that the little plastic lens. You see this tiny thing? It's never going to focus on that, is it? Come on, camera. Okay, you can't see that. Basically, you want the little plastic lens to sit in the hole. So it's just a matter of plonking it in with a pair of tweezers. Done. First one. And you'll notice that there's a little pixel art green triangle, like a sort of T shape. But I think of it as a triangle. And you want it to be in the same direction as the little triangle that's marked on the board. And when you're doing the white ones, you'll notice that they alternate directions in rows, so you need to be triple, quadruple check. So I've done 4 of them, and 3 of my LEDs popped out the right way around so I could see the little triangle, but most of them end up falling on their side, or with the lens up, which is no good. So you have to sort of have a bit of dexterity, and it's not hard, but it's just a little bit tedious. This is the slowest bit of it. So if you've not done surface mount soldering before, this is like easy mode, because the little plastic lens sits in the hole and it pretty much holds it in place for you once you've plonked it in. So I've done 7 now. Turn it round, and I've done 8. You could do all 64 white in one go, or you could do 8 or 16. I recommend batching it a little bit. Now, actually I don't need solder yet, because remember we put solder on one of the pads, so now we're just going to go over, which sides I do it on the top pads. And I'm basically, with a clean iron, cleanish iron, I'm going to touch the LED in the middle with my tweezers and heat up the pillow of solder that's resting on one side, and it will make it go flush to the board and solder it in on one side. So you're not adding any solder, you're just melting the pillow that was already there. Go a bit further into the camera. Done. Basically, I just did 8, a zip all the way down. We turn it round. So now we've got 8 pads that have never seen solder in their life. But this is easy because the the LED is held in place on the other side now. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and again I'm heating with a little bit of the LED and a little bit of the pad. Done. That was easy, wasn't it? 8 LEDs done in about a minute, and then you have to do a bunch more. And that is everything. And we now put Plinky back together again. People just admire our handiwork. We did the sockets, we did the sockets up here, we did the sockets under the screen, we did the pots and the encoder, the screen over the top with the adjusted pin length. We trimmed these headers. We put in the jacks, making sure to put the green ones in the right place. We did the Eurorack power. And we used the screen to hold everything in place. Now, a bit stiff again to push them back in. Now at this point you can screw your 16 nuts on if you're feeling bold. Let's just do 2 for the purposes of expediency. And there we go. And these also have nuts. Now I turn the knobs to middle, to midday if you like. There we go. And plonk the lovely little aluminium knobs on. I'm being optimistic, it's going to work. Will it work? I mean, at this point we've just got to switch it on basically. Lovely. Now the first time we switch it on, which we're going to do with USB, I have it plugged into my computer. I'm actually going to hold down the encoder while I plug it in, and that will put it into a special booting flash mode. Oh my god. There it is. Now you'll know you're in the flash mode because you'll get a kind of tunnel of lights, and that will let you see, and I'm seeing this for the first time as well with you, whether or not any of the LEDs are badly soldered, but it looks like these ones are all good, so I've managed to succeed. Now, when you do that, if you have it plugged into a PC, I'm actually going to check out of curiosity, it should have popped up as a USB drive, which it has, Plinky E. So now if I take the installation software, which I have here under software release, you have to take it on my word, that I'm basically dragging and dropping a file. Where's it gone? There it is, firmware, and I'm just dragging and dropping it onto the USB drive that popped up. And I don't know if you saw that, but the lights will have flickered slightly, and it's basically, that's flashed it with the latest firmware, and almost certainly I will have updated the software by the time you have your kit, so you want to do that step. And when we're finished, we click and it boots. Okay, oh my god. So now we're in the full Plinky software. And if you'd done this without holding down the encoder on the first boot, this is what you'd have seen. It says calibration. So calibration is all about making it understand how heavily and fat your fingers are. So if you change case or you change fingers, change human, then you'll need to do this step again. So what we do is we gently, sort of, I call it medium hard, press on each light, and it will then jump up a row. And don't double tap or anything, just do it one tap on each light. If you don't get your finger perfectly central, just sort of nudge it into place without taking it off, otherwise it might think that you've done that pad already. And we basically just go through all 64 pads, 72 if you include the blue ones. This is another good check of your LEDs. If any of these don't light up, it's a sign that one of your LEDs doesn't have the right, isn't soldered in the right way around, or if the lights don't light up at all, or if they jump around, you may have a short, or you may have soldered in the LEDs backwards. Double check your work. So far so good. So I've done 22, wiggle my finger into position there, 23, 24. Riveting stuff. Now the CV calibration is actually already done for you, so 1 volt per octave, all that goodness. I do that on my kitchen table on the bare board before it's been built using Magic. So you used to have to do a CV calibration step, but you no longer have to. You can if you really want to. Should I tell you how to do that? So basically, on boot, if you hold down the encoder, it goes into the tunnel of light flashing new software mode. If you twist the left knob while it's booting, it will let you redo this touch calibration. If it's behaving weirdly or its fingers all offset, doesn't know what button you're pressing, twist that left knob on boot and it will do this process again. You may find that if you have a chunky Eurorack case with lots of metal, It may get confused, it's worth doing. And if you twist the right knob, this one here, it will actually ask you to do CV calibration, which requires a multimeter or a calibrated oscillator from Hooray. So you probably don't want to do that unless you're ready to kind of, basically it plays a C0 and a C2 out of its pitch, and you plug it into your synth, and you make sure it sounds like a C0 and a C2, and you adjust it. And then when you're happy that it's in tune, you plug a cable in so it can calibrate its own inputs. And it's done. Alright, we've done all the white ones. Let's do the blue ones. Oh my gosh, 3 more to go. And that's Plinky booting up. Let's plug in, man. Sorry if there's any clicks. Headphones on the right. I don't know if you can hear that. I can't hear that. Maybe you can hear that. I can see it. Now, the workflow is really simple. I'll make a separate demo for the workflow, but to recap, these are the 2 main shift keys. This one refers to the text that's on the top right, and this one refers to the text that's on the bottom right. You hold it down, you touch any of the pads. This one's my favourite one, which is delay send, for obvious reasons. You turn it up, and now you can just play boop, 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 boop. My PC's running out of battery. Not good. Doot, 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 doot. And let's do reverb. So if you hold down the B, press the same pad. Now we can do some reverb. Use this slider to crank up the reverb, because reverb. I can't hear any of that, but I'm assuming it sounds amazing. And there you go, we built a Plinky. I think the last thing to show you is pull the power out. Plunk, plunk. If you have the beautiful, sexy aluminium case, you can plunk Plinky in that way and have the ports coming out the top, or you can turn it round, as I originally had it, and have them coming out the back end. And what you do is you slide the port ends in first, and there you go. It's like the world's smallest skiff case. I mean, isn't that beautiful? And then you plug your M3 Nerlies or otherwise in here. There's one. And one in the other diagonal corner. And now you have a self-contained aluminium. It's got good heft. Now before my PC runs out, and I think my breakfast build is complete, Plinky is a thing. Thanks very much.